Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Friday, June 17th, 2016. My name is Rich, and with me once again, for the second time this week, is Bijan. How are you making out?
What up, man? I'm so excited to get into this. I'm wearing my Spartan race t-shirt right now. I'm all Spartaned up. Let's do this.
You've been waiting for this for a while, so...
Oh, so long.
So this is our special Spartan episode. We covering the Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge, which I really wish they would change the name of because it's terrible.
Terrible name.
So we get to finally learn some about the show and the formatting and everything. I guess first impressions, did you like it, hate it, somewhere in between?
Well, this is going to be interesting. I think we're going to have a fun conversation today because from the sounds of what I've heard, you weren't thoroughly impressed with this particular show, but I must say, man, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't know if it's because I've done these obstacles or something, but I love this. Like, I can't say I love the show because there's definitely, man, room for improvement, right? But it's the first season and it's the first episode of it. You know, they're still getting their feet wet with the show. I think they're going to fine tune it and find a sweet middle ground. Man, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I think it has lots of potential. It didn't live up to what I was expecting. I actually really enjoyed the internet versions that we watched previously, the one that we reviewed. I thought that was a much better format, but it is what it is, and let's review it, and I'm hoping it'll pick up over the season. Maybe it'll grow on me. Maybe I'll warm to some of the format issues that I see and see if you kind of had the same problems with it.
Yeah. But before we go in, I just want to hit this one little point because I think it means a lot, which is with American Ninja Warrior, we know a lot of these people. They very much nail it into our heads that these people have stories and the commitments and everything. With this show, we are being introduced to all of these people for the first time. I think this is a show where it's going to slowly grow on you. I think when we hit the finals, where we're familiar with all of the teams, it's going to be in a whole lot more because the stakes are going to be that much higher. So anybody that's feeling a little bit like Rich, where it's like, I don't know these people, I don't care about these people, give it a shot, keep sticking with it. I think it'll get much better when you are actually invested in the teams and the stakes.
Yeah, that is part of the issue, I think, is it's a condensed time frame. We have 30 people on this episode to try to warm to, and basically we're just trying to get them as teams, and I think that helps, right? They can lump them together as, Boston versus New York. That has its own persona, right? It's built right in there. You have that rivalry to go by. So that helps. It helps to group people together in that way, and you have a team to root for.
I definitely had a team that I was rooting for. Like for you, was it just a bunch of teams to you, or was there a team that stood out to you that you were particularly rooting for?
I was actually rooting for American Dream Team from the beginning. They built them up, though, right? That was kind of built into the whole thing. They really talked about them a lot.
And it was smart, man. They won. I mean, there's a reason to do it. And I got to say, they were my favorites as well. So at least they built up a particular team that we're going to see more of. That I think it worked just by the fact that we'll see them again and we will be familiar with their names. But at the same time, it might be one of those Palm Wonderful moments where it's like they're building up this one team over all the other teams. It's obvious they're going to win. So we need to keep an eye out for that, man.
Yeah, that was kind of my feeling from the beginning. Is like they don't seem to be featuring the other teams quite as heavily as these guys. Maybe that's giving me a hint here.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's get into it. But I just wanted an overview, just see how you felt about it.
Yeah, so I wasn't even sure of the format of the whole thing. I kind of stayed a blank slate as we went into this. We found out there's 2 women and 2 men and 1 elite athlete, and they're competing for a grand prize of $250,000. And this one was filmed in, I hope I get this right, Chattahoochee Hills, Georgia.
I guess. I don't.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention to that part.
It flashed by pretty fast, but I wanted to grab that. And so then we had the hosts, right? We had Dahani Jones and Kyle Martino as the main hosts. What did you think of those 2 guys?
I liked them. I must say that their presence was very it wasn't presented like just in your face, and I kind of like I enjoyed that because this show is condensed and you just really need to give all of the airtime to the teams, and I like the fact that their presence was understated. With that said, like, I totally forgot Evan Dollard was even part of this show. I think he had maybe like 30 seconds in total of airtime, right?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. As I actually hadn't even written down his name, and MJ Acosta, the other co-host, the sideline reporter, whatever you want to call them, because you just didn't see them.
Yeah. I will say this, though, man. I feel like the way they're doing it, I feel like they know that they can't have the entire team as like big stars of the show. So it kind of feels like they're hyping up the team captains of every single team. And I think that's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, that's about all you can do for now. Eventually you can kind of get a feel for everybody on the team. But using the captains is, I think, a good way to go.
Mm-hmm. Plus, like, they're front and center for everything, so they're going to be more viewable or relatable. Like, you'll notice Isaiah Vidal or Rose Wetzel, when they pop up. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, I can definitely see them, and I know who they're affiliated with.
Yeah, plus they have some built-in fan base, right? If you're following Spartan closely, you are more likely to know who the captains are and already be wanting to root for them. So you want to see them more.
I should have been a damn team captain.
Maybe next time.
No, I would be the worst.
You could be one of the other guys, though, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. From what I saw, let's just say I would do quite well in this show.
So right off the bat, they start listing off the format, and it has a very Team Ninja Warrior vibe to it. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, very much so. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, Spartan races or any of these types of races, it's all about endurance, and they kind of hit on it a little bit, like hinted to it. But this, I think the whole course was, a mile long or something like that, right? It was very short.
Yeah, I mean, it took them 20 minutes to do the whole thing.
Yeah. You're not doing that for a regular Spartan race or a super Spartan or anything. So the course is shorter, but with that, they seem to amp up the proximity of the obstacles. And honestly, nobody gives a damn about watching a bunch of teams run for a long time. So I understand that. I hope in the finals they have even more obstacles, just one after another after another. And I think we will see that. I appreciate what they saw, and one thing I'm really happy about, because at the end of the episode, I'm like, man, if they do the Team Ninja Warrior thing where it's the same obstacles, that's going to be really lame. It looks as though they're switching up the obstacles every episode. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I was so confused, and that was part of the problem, I think. They flash up a screen, and I wrote down all the obstacles on it, because I'm used to trying to cover American Ninja Warrior, so I'm like, okay. So I wrote down all of the obstacles they had. There was 14 of them up there, and then they started showing different ones and in different orders, and I just kind of gave up on it. It was kind of all over the place. I don't know if they did them all and just didn't show them, or if things were just shown out of order, or if I'm just trying to overanalyze the whole thing. But I was just a little confused at where they were progressing along. Like, so for example, I guess right off the bat, when they flashed the map, I saw the first obstacle was the walls. And then we didn't see the walls until like the final race. I'm pretty sure they did them the first time around. They just didn't show them doing it.
Oh yeah, they did the whole course.
Yeah, it was so that was confusing to me. I'm like, okay, so where's the walls? So what obstacle are they on now? Where, like, it was just, the whole thing was a little weird. The only one they showed, I think, well, they obviously showed the slip wall each time, but they liked showing the log swing a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the log swing visually is pretty impressive, right? And the slip wall as well. By the way, slip wall, I have a lot to say about that because I've done it, and it's cool stories, and it's one of my favorite obstacles ever that I've ever done. But what I'll say is, I think the timing has a lot to do with it. They only are given an hour, which really means about 40 to 44 minutes of airtime for this episode, and they have to go through 2 heats plus a final heat. So they really have to shorten this down, plus introducing everybody. It's really rough, and I feel like the first half of this episode was kind of a hot mess. It was just everywhere, like as you hinted to. The whole time I didn't really know what was going on. I'm like, this is terrible. But I've got to say the second half is where this show really sprung into high gear, and it really impressed me. So maybe it has a lot to do with the editing. I don't know, man. You're being thrown a lot of new information. I think that has a lot to do with it. Just so many new things being thrown at the audience that you really don't know where to begin.
Yeah, it could have really used, for the premiere, I think, above all else, we could have used an episode just introducing us to the course and the teams and just getting an idea of who everybody is, like, and how it's going to run. Like, I felt like we were kind of thrown into the deep end with this. You know, it starts running. So the teams, they show us all the teams, right? So Heat 1 is Boston Beasts, Gotham City Warriors, American Dream Team. And Heat 2 is Ruby's Racers, Law and Order, and Team Elevate. And as they're running through, I'm going, wait, isn't this Heat 2? And then all of a sudden it flashes back after one of the commercials saying, oh, by the way, Heat 1 ran earlier and this is the results. And I'm like, well, what is going on? The whole thing was
I didn't
strange.
know what was going on either. I'm like, what? I was like, was I not paying attention? I'm glad you caught that too, because I thought I was just out to lunch. I'm like, I don't know what the hell just happened. Like, it was cool seeing people run it, but I wasn't invested because I didn't really know what was going on. I think they really need to address that later on in the show. I think one big thing that this show would really help it is, you know how at the beginning of every American Ninja Warrior episode where they kind of spend like 5 minutes running down the entire obstacle course of American Ninja Warrior, that Heat, and they break down every single obstacle and how it's done and everything. I think that would really help with the show. They just spend the first 5 minutes of this episode breaking down the entire course and what everybody's going to go through. So therefore, if they skip it, you already have an understanding of what they've been through beforehand.
Yeah, and maybe it was part of the enjoyment why you enjoyed it a little more than I did. I will have to say the second half picked up, and I did, the second half wasn't so bad. But I think you're familiar with the obstacles, so you didn't have the questions I had along the way where I was getting confused.
Well, how about this, Rich? Which racers really stood out to you? Were there any prominent stars that you felt like really made just a presence in the show?
I mean, the captains kind of did. Isaiah Vidal, was it?
Isaiah, he was definitely the prominent one for me. That guy really stood out. Like, his team in general was really cool, but Isaiah really impressed me by how he just led his team, his strength involved, and just, you saw his commitment. They really built him up to be one of the prominent stars of the show. And I think you're going to see that later on with other team captains or competitors, because I think the brother and sister also had a really good story, and they were pretty cool to watch as well. But I got to say, Isaiah really took the cake for me.
I really liked Rose Wetzel too. I really liked when they were falling behind. She was encouraging them, hey, we're going to be the comeback story. Like, that was a good way to kind of encourage them, motivate them. Hey, don't, just because we're in last, that just means it's all the more going to be all the more exciting when we get ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I think her team could have used more airtime to get an understanding of, just the struggle of their team. But I understand why they didn't show them.
Yeah, I liked the Boston, New York rivalry. I think that made it more interesting for sure. So actually, I do want to talk about one of the obstacles. So the log swing thing, that was pretty cool. Is that something you normally see?
No, that probably was the most newest or strangest obstacle for me. Now, that isn't necessarily meaning that it's not an obstacle they use at different Spartan races. I've only been to the SoCal Spartan, so it's not one predominantly used over there. With that said, that obstacle looks really, really fun. By the way, that's probably one reason why we haven't seen it as much is because I've done both running the Spartans, the Super Spartan by myself, and I've also done it as a team. And that particular obstacle looks like you have to have it with a team to do it. So that's maybe why we haven't seen our regular Spartans. I really enjoyed just everything about it, where you absolutely need to work with a team to get past it. And, there was another obstacle. I hope you wrote it down because I don't know the name, but there was one where you kind of carry this giant log, like your entire team has to carry this giant log onto these two hooks. Do you know the name of that obstacle?
The log traverse. That thing looks scary and crazy.
That looked, first of all, I want to make it clear, Spartan races are incredibly dangerous. for Spartan and the Tough Mudder, people have died like continuously every year doing these things. And I think the show, you can kind of see why things very bad could happen. Because I was terrified when that hook part when it fell and almost smashed a guy's head in. Like, you saw, like, that thing looked heavy. And if that were to land on that guy's head, I don't think we'd be watching this show right now.
Yeah, probably not.
Like, first episode, they'd be like, yeah, we're not doing this show anymore. Something happened. And that's all we'd hear about it. That could have gone very poorly, very wrong. But they kind of glossed over that obstacle, but there was another part of it where you kind of have to, like, it goes sideways, and you kind of, like, have to have your team, like, kind of, like, run off the side of a wall with this log on it. It looks so incredibly cool, and I can't believe they glossed over it.
Exactly.
Did you see that part?
I totally did, and I'm like, what is, like, how did we miss this part? And show me more. I want to see what they have to do with the log.
Didn't it look cool, man? It looks so cool. And that's the thing. I think the obstacles involved on this particular show are incredibly creative. Even the simplistic obstacle like that rope hang, with the rope with the knots, but you have to have your entire team on it, and the rope is short enough where you, like, some of the team has to, like, hold on with just their hands. They can't even put their feet on the knots. Like, that looks so incredibly difficult. But it's little creative things like that I wish they just show more of.
I think they featured that one pretty good. I think that's the totem climb. And I thought that was a pretty good one. I thought that demonstrated kind of the concept of the show pretty well, where it is a team thing. You get your strongest members up top. That also really struck me as incredibly dangerous. If the person at the top falls,
right?
Oh, that's it. They're all done.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, on regular Spartan races, they have that obstacle, but it's one person, and you're not even allowed to have people underneath it or anywhere in the vicinity of underneath it. Nobody goes the next wave until everybody from the top is down on the bottom, because there's been instances. There's an infamous story. Well, I'll get into it later, but the log swing really scared me the first time they went, and I'll get into it later, because there's an infamous story of somebody dying doing an obstacle very similar to that. But it's the same difference where somebody falls and they fall on you, you're going to get hurt really, really badly. But I think that in a way, isn't that the whole, like, for me, why I do Spartans, that's why I love this kind of stuff, because it is so dangerous. I mean, I've been tear gassed, man. I've like last time I did Tough Mudder, I got tear gas. I ran through fire. I got electrocuted by car batteries. This stuff is dangerous. This stuff can kill me, but I do it and I love it.
Yeah, this whole Spartan race thing is a little bit nuts, and I think the people that do it realize that, and that's why you like it. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all these obstacles, dangerous as hell. I would give everything in my bank account to do it.
I don't get that, but I appreciate it, and I think it could make for a really entertaining show. I think they just need to make some tweaks maybe to get it there, and I think the second half showed a lot of promise.
Yeah. Well, I guess one way to describe it is American Ninja Warrior, they play up the difficulty of the obstacles, right? So that's where when somebody like Casey Catanzaro does it, it's really a big impact. If they play up the danger, well, that's the thing. How do you really play up the danger aspect of it? Like, they're dangerous, and I feel like on this show they kind of glossed over how dangerous these obstacles are, but I don't really know how you can really hype up the danger of it without something horribly going wrong. Be like, hey, see? So, yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like I said, the one that we watched, I liked that format, and I felt like this didn't demonstrate what I am most amazed about by Spartan. Not so much the danger as the endurance of it, the marathon aspect of it, where you watch them just do obstacle after obstacle. It's like their arms must be killing them at this point. I didn't get that from this episode. It felt more like just a little bit longer
Spartan light.
Yeah, like a really light.
Yeah, because for everybody that doesn't know, there was before this another Spartan show that followed the Super Spartan and the top athletes competing in it, like Rose Wetzel and everybody else. And when we saw that, we saw the fatigue and just how incredibly difficult it is. I mean, when I'm halfway through a Spartan race, I literally can't feel my arms or my legs because they're completely burned out. I've used it all up. And it's muscling through that other half, that makes it so incredibly difficult. Now, when we saw that, one moment that stood out to me really much, and I think Rich, you'll remember this too, one of the female athletes, she like cut open her forehead almost completely where she's covered in blood from the barbed wire, and she's still running full on strength, not even worrying about it, and she's like just toughing it out and doing all this other crazy stuff. That's what's cool about the show. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, and I remember they showed stories of them, I think spraining their wrist or something, like just like outright injuries, not just getting hurt, but injured and just pushing through. Like it was just like a mark of pride of like, well, I completed it with a broken leg. I don't
I dislocated my knee a year and a half ago in Tough Mudder and finished, and that's one point of contention for me where I'm like, yeah, I'm this tough. But, it's cool stuff like that.
Yeah, to me, that's what I was expecting, and it's not quite what I got. It was it was like a longer, more nature-friendly Ninja Warrior in a way.
I was about to say, it's very clear this show is made by the creators of American Ninja Warrior. I think that's the best way of describing it. They're trying to combine American Ninja Warrior with Spartan, but it just... They still need to find a way of going more towards the Spartan area point of it because they're a little too much far in the American Ninja Warrior aspect. And it isn't a fully meshed out working part. But with that said, it's still an enjoyable show. And I think the second season, when we do this, it's gonna be much better. Well, if we get a second season, I don't know how the ratings are gonna be for the show, but I definitely see there's a good transition, especially since this comes on right after American Ninja Warrior, which I'm really happy about. This show does have a good shot of becoming another niche program for fans of American Ninja Warrior.
Now, going forward, isn't it going to be on a different night, though? Didn't it move to... I think it's going to be on...
No. They're swapping this also on another day?
Well, I think this is taking over the Wednesday slot.
Oh, my God.
That A&W was in. I think it just premiered... I could be wrong. We should probably check that before.
Why would NBC do that? That's such a... that's terrible if that's true.
So looking at it here, we see that the episode from June 13th was the premiere, but they're also calling it the preview, and they're very, very confusing with the schedule. So I don't know what day of the week it's going to be showing on. It kind of looks like it's going to be Mondays after A&W, but then it says in another part that it's going to be airing on Thursdays. So we'll have to kind of see as it goes.
Yeah, it looks as though they're going to have one more Monday, and then from there Thursdays. And I don't know why they're doing that. I mean, the easy explanation is going to be, well, it's after American Ninja Warrior, so people will be introduced to the show. But then why are you moving it to Thursdays? Like, what's going on with that? Thursday's a really rough night to put on any show, especially a new show. I think it's going to get absolutely killed in ratings, and that really worries me.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. We'll keep you informed as we figure it out, and we'll keep covering them.
Mm-hmm. But let's get back to the show, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's just finish off the first half. I mean, honestly, to everybody, the first half was kind of just like a mishmash of highlights of the teams. We didn't really get a feel for how it all went. We'll cover, I guess, in a more... a traditional way of following what happened for the second half when we did the final heat. But I guess for this part, let's talk about the two particular obstacles. How'd you feel about I think it's called the wall lift or something like that, where you dunk underneath the walls, and also the slippery wall where you have to climb up with your team up the wall. Now, I've done both of these obstacles multiple times, but from just like a viewer's perspective, how'd you like it?
I liked the dunk walls. I thought that was interesting, but I was a little confused too. So yet another part where it didn't make a lot of sense to me. So the second wall is heavy, and they need multiple people to hold it up while somebody goes under. Mm-hmm. So then they can hold it from the other side too? I wasn't sure how does the last person or the last two people get under then.
My guess is that the rest of the team holds it up from underneath, I guess like kind of how, I don't know if you ever played a video game where they crank up and then the other person holds up the wall or the, just like the garage door or whatever. That's my guess, is that they're holding it from the bottom up. But as you can imagine, that's very dangerous. So who knows? That part they certainly don't have in Spartan Race for obvious reasons, but the dunk wall they typically do. And I appreciated the fact that I forget the girl's name, but there was somebody that was hyperventilating when they dunked under, and I think that has a lot to do with it because that water is usually freezing cold. And you mix that with the fact that these walls are incredibly thick. It's not very thin where you can just dunk in and then you just switch on over to the other side without moving, really. It's very thick where you dunk underneath really, really low. I think you don't really get a feel for how low these walls are, but you have to like almost crawl on the floor underneath the water, in the muddy water, in ice cold water, and then you have to go maybe a foot or 2 feet forwards and then get back up. So it's very much you're simulating almost like, if you're not familiar with water, like drowning in various aspects, where it can really like startle a person.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying. Yeah, no thank you. But yeah, they didn't really give you that impression.
Yeah, it's more of you'll get the feel for it if you do it. I guess another thing is that it really bothered me on the show is you don't really get a feel from watching it, but the barbed wire thing, obstacle, I forget its name, that thing is incredibly exhausting. Beyond what you can ever imagine it to be, is so exhausting because you have to put your body so incredibly low to the ground and you have to keep rolling or crawling forward, and it's very long. That wins you so badly.
Yeah, it's the army crawl, I think they called it.
Mm-hmm.
They mention things offhand, so they say, I can't even remember that's the thing, they don't really show it as much as tell you it's 100 feet or 100 yards, or I have no idea how long they said it was. Now, it sounded long, but I didn't get a sense of it because they just kind of showed a couple of clips of them crawling through the mud.
Yeah, it didn't look very long or hard at all, right? Because they just showed parts, but it's a lot longer than it looks, and it's a lot more difficult than it looks. But I think that's one of the problems, is that they don't really hype up the danger of it. Maybe, everybody has to remember, this is a preview episode. Maybe during one of the more special episodes, maybe the premiere, quote unquote, next week, maybe we'll get a better feeling of a sense of danger with it. Maybe somebody will get cut up and, somebody will hurt themselves, or you'll see more strain in people doing them, because you really didn't get that on this particular show. But one thing I enjoyed, at least, is that we did get to, we got a good story for one of the teams that won, and we got a good sense of just how team-oriented some of these obstacles are, and especially talking about how do you feel about the slip wall. That thing is awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was kind of the highlight of the show, right? And I think they showcased it well, that there's, different strategies for tackling it, and how it can go horribly wrong. Actually, in that first heat that we saw, Gotham actually left one of their guys behind, so he's looking up like guys, he's running at the wall trying to get caught up to them. Obviously, they just, I just don't know what the plan was there. They totally messed up.
I think the guy thought that he had hops and that he could get up there, but I was like, no. As soon as I saw him, like, no, that's not going to work. I really like this obstacle. I think in many aspects, doesn't it kind of feel like the warped wall of Spartan? Like, I feel like we're going to see this particular obstacle every single episode.
Yeah, that definitely gave me that impression. I think they'll have a couple iconic ones. I think the amount they built up that log swing, it seems like maybe they want that to be one of them too.
Yeah. Can you imagine them, like just to amp up the more difficulty, like they have people on the side like blasting the teams with like hoses and stuff of water, just to just mess with everybody? I can so see that happening.
Spraying down the slip wall with dish detergent or something, and yeah, it could get really bad. The thing with the log swing, yeah. I keep going back to it because I'm confused. It doesn't make any sense to me that they don't have to hit the pad, right? Like, does it slow them down that much to hit the water? Like, wouldn't it just make sense to just jump off the stupid thing and swim over and continue on?
Yeah, it looks like it, because you saw people in the water when the rest of their team would jump right in. And that was one big problem that I had, and I guess I'll talk about it now. There's an infamous story from, I believe it was a Tough Mudder, not a Spartan, but there's something called the cliffhanger, where you jump about 20 feet off a cliff into water. And typically, and this is for all these obstacle course mud run things, is any particular obstacle where it deals with water, especially jumping from something into water, you need to clear out the whole space of water before the next person jumps in. Because what happened this one moment is somebody jumped, into the water, which is all fine. But then before the next wave came in, some just idiot just ran past everybody, jumped right in, landed right on some guy, broke his neck, and the guy drowned, and he died, And this is what really worried me, because it really flashed it when you saw the first team just do it. You saw like maybe 2 people in the water right in front of the pad, and then you see some guy jump right off the log swing right into the water, land just a foot away from like the next person, and that could have gone really, really wrong. And I was really worried, because you land on somebody in that water, it doesn't matter how many medics are around, man. Somebody can easily break their neck and drown, or, really just mess themselves up really badly. And that's the stuff that worries me. There needs to be more clear rules with that.
Yeah, like they need a rule for that one, maybe, that, and it would make sense for the obstacle too, that if the next person can't jump until one of them is standing on the pad or standing on some platform behind it, so that it makes it more worthwhile to actually hit the pad and wait, and it's a lot safer for everyone. Yeah.
Because what's stopping anybody from being like, hey, everybody, let's just jump off at once, right? And we'll just swim to the pad. Wouldn't that save them much more time? How they have it now?
Yeah, and it's around that time with the log swing that they actually started showcasing the tom-tom that they were wearing to track their vitals. I love the product placement. You can't get away from the Palm Wonderful style placements.
Oh, boy. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the point is of tracking your vitals for these things.
No, I understand that. I just don't know Tom. Like, who gets those things? Like, nobody has Tom-Toms.
Yeah, that's kind of what my next question was, is have you seen people wearing that type of tracker for these things?
Yeah, I have a Fitbit on right now, but that's the thing. Like, people have Fitbits or Garmin Vital,
fair
whatever
enough.
they're called and stuff.
Yeah, that's the brand.
Nobody has Tom-Toms.
Tom-Tom, yeah, that's what my GPS is.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to look around more, but I usually see people with different brands of watches. But, I guess it's smart product placement for maybe a brand. Like, maybe TomTom's new and they're just trying to get into it.
Yeah, I would say that's probably what it is. They're trying to break into the market. This seemed like a good place to showcase it. Yeah. So yeah, one of the guys was actually hesitating because he can't swim, right? Like, really? You're going to go into the show and you can't swim? That seems like a really, really bad idea.
Dude, I can't swim. I don't know. But, well,
you
I think the bigger problem is that I can swim, but I can't swim in like lakes or across like ocean and stuff. I'm not about to swim super deep into stuff, I guess is the best way to describe it. But I've swam across like a lake in Tough Mudder and stuff. What I'll say is this. For these obstacles, you need to know what you're getting into, and you need to have a clear understanding that, yeah, you're going to be safe. I mean, they're not going to let you drown on the show. So, like, I just brought up somebody, like, breaking their necks and stuff, but if you're just jumping in the water, you're gonna be okay on a show like this that's clearly supervised, and you already have your teammates ready to catch you anyways. So I don't know what the heck was the guy afraid of, but I don't know, like, fear of drowning is pretty serious, man. Maybe it's just something where we don't really have a full understanding of that fear that maybe other people have. But he shouldn't have been on this show if he wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it because I know they expect me to jump into deep water, and I'm not likely to do that because I'm not a strong swimmer. So, but anyway, he did it. It's just the hesitation, is a pretty big thing when you're in a race.
Yeah, he almost screwed over his team, right? I mean, they won by a matter of seconds almost. You got to be glad that they finished. They're able to make up the time, but he almost screwed his team over, and I really hope his team. I'm pretty sure he knows it. I think next time you won't see that hesitation from him, but that's all wishful thinking. Yeah, the log swing, it's something, but once again, I really like the whole aspect of how you really have to you have your whole team using it to swing and everything. It's cool. I wish they had maybe a switch up where you have to land on the pad, and if you don't, you have to swim across, get back on the log, reset. That would be cool because you'd have more chances of having a switch up in times for the teams, They need something more like that.
It would add more of an endurance aspect to it too, right? And you would... Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Or they could all do burpees. I didn't see any burpees in this whole thing.
Wow, I forgot about that. Yeah, burpees are a major part of Spartan races. Oh, God. Don't get me started with burpees. Those are the worst. But the thing about burpees, though, is that burpees are a chance to skip over an obstacle, whereas on this show, it seems as though you have to complete each obstacle. So maybe we won't get burpees. But I do wish we saw, I guess, more responsibility or more ownership of making mistakes on the show, because if you fall in the water, you shouldn't be able to just keep going. You should be sent back to the back and do it. Plus, it would make a lot more I guess visual aspects when it comes down to the last person, you having to get enough build to swing across that log just by yourself. That would make it so awesome to watch.
Yeah. So looking at, we'll kind of skip over the initial heats because it's just too much.
Yeah, who cares?
The final runs were the American Dream Team, Law and Order, and Ruby's Racers. So the guy that was actually hesitating was from the American Dream Team. It's the guy they call the Ram. So that was making them lag behind. And then they kind of cut to, and I kind of took issue with them cutting out during the race. Like, if you want to show us stories and stuff, that's great. Show us and then run the heat. Like, the cutouts in the middle were kind of bugging me.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying because you're getting amped up for the race and you're you're invested in it, right? But then they cut out away to some vignette and you're like, I don't care. It almost kind of gets you annoyed by the person, which isn't fair to the person that they're covering. But I think psychologically you get kind of annoyed by this person being on the screen when you want to watch them race. I think it'll help if they do it beforehand. With that said, I do like the fact that they hyped up the, I forget the name, the lawyers, or what are they, the law students?
Law and Order.
Law and Order, yeah. I like the fact that they hyped up Law and Order since we already got a sense of the American Dream Team before, and those were the two teams that were kind of neck and neck most of the race. So I appreciated that. But yeah, the editors could have done it a little bit better, just switching things around and placement wise. With that said, man, the obstacles are really fun. I guess I appreciate the fact a little bit that they showed different obstacles in the second half, right? They showed a little bit more of what they were doing across the course.
Well, I just think they alternated the obstacles. The first heat, they showed, a few different ones than they showed the second time around. So it seemed new, but I'm pretty sure they did the same obstacles both times. They just kind of...
Oh, they did. But they actually showed it. It seems like the first half, they only showed maybe 4 or 5 obstacles, and in the second half it seems like they showed off more of the obstacles across the course.
A little bit, maybe. I mean, they showed the Herc hoist in the first one, and totem climb, spear throw. I mean, a lot of the same obstacles. And then the second one, I guess we got to see the walls, and I don't know, maybe a little bit more.
I think they highlighted. I think they gave a more time, I guess, to some of the more daunting obstacles. I appreciated that. I like the fact that it gave more sense of. I don't know, the fact that you saw a team that you were invested in with the American Dream Team having that slip up and trying to catch up to Team Law and Order. I think it ramped up just the intrigue in the show a little bit more, and I was actually invested in them where I really wasn't invested in the teams in the earlier parts of the show. By the way, I think this is also an issue with Team Ninja Warrior, but that's an aside. But Team Ninja Warrior, they can learn from some of the mistakes of Spartan as well, or vice versa. Yeah, I think when it got down to I keep forgetting the name. Is it slip wall?
Yeah, slip wall.
Yeah, I think when it got down to the slip wall, the intrigue of who was going to make it out really amped up to 11, and I think the show really got fun. But the problem is that, hey, that's 10 minutes of an hour-long show, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, some of the stuff was interesting, but it's going to get repeated along the way, I would imagine, right? So seeing some of these obstacles, for example, the timber drop, they called it, the giant thing that they hoisted the big log up and then dropped it over the other side, was very cool to see, and then they had to kind of shimmy their way up. But at the same time, speaking of danger, one of the girls was over there for her team when they dropped the log for the other one. Like, that seemed crazy.
I don't know, man. It's kind of like they're playing Russian roulette with the safety of these people, huh? Like,
I'm
a
sure little bit.
Yeah, I have a feeling they're probably a lot more safe, or maybe they have more medics than we see. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. A part of me, like the Spartan in me, kind of likes that. Like, I want even more danger, just because that's kind of what people that sign up for Spartan race are for. They want to do these somewhat unsafe obstacles, like doing these crazy things that you can tell stories about and do all this crazy stuff, but at the same time, not really want to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just kind of the illusion of real danger when it's just, a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'll run through fire, but I'm not really about to get, like, third-degree burns, you know? I could fall and trip and get third-degree burns, but I'm kind of going to be safe if I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
By the way, there's no fire on this episode. What's up with that, man? Where's the fire?
That's a good point, come to think of it, because that seems like an iconic thing for them, isn't it?
Yeah, they have the rope spear and all the other stuff, but no fire. I don't know. I'm kind of down on that, man. I want my fire.
Yeah, we got the spear throws, which were very cool.
I guess. I mean, you can ask anybody. The spear throws are lame when it comes to Spartan. I'm like, yeah, a lot of people call it the burpee obstacle because, man, you've got like maybe a 20% chance of actually getting that spear on the haystack, and you only get 2 tries. Like, most people walk up to it and be like, oh, here we go. Here's my burpees.
Oh, but they had to do it 3 times in the show.
Yeah, I actually like that, though. It gives a chance for teams to catch up.
Yeah, and it did in this case. It definitely did. So yeah, in the end, it came down to that big race at the slip wall. I thought it was really good. That was really interesting. I'm sure that's why they featured this one first, because it's a good hook, having them all racing at that last point to be the first ones over the wall.
Yeah, the thing about the slip wall is that, and you also saw it with the rope climb, for a lot of these obstacles, it's kind of like you just get through with brute strength, right? It's just athleticism. Whereas with the slip wall, you really have to have an idea of what you're doing. You have to have a lot of commitment, and there's various ways of doing it. And not just that, you really have to work completely trusting and have complete, trust in your team, right? Like, you really have to work with everybody there, and everybody needs to know their role in it. And that's what I love about it.
So were you surprised when it was the American Dream Team that ultimately were the ones that got over the wall first?
I really was. I thought Team Law & Order had it, didn't you? Like, they were so much ahead, and they were at form, but I don't know what they're thinking. Like, you don't leave the guy on the bottom by himself. I don't care how tall you are. That wall is so deceptively higher than it looks, and at an angle where you're not going to be able to jump like that, unless you got like NBA like level hops. What a poor, I don't know what those guys were thinking. I really like the comeback story. It was perfect for this premiere episode. And isn't it cool just seeing like everybody holding on to like a different body part, and people are just literally scratching and clawing up like people's bodies up this damn thing? Isn't it just such a cool visual?
It kind of is. And then they're going over the wall, like their head first hanging down, and one person's trying to keep them from falling down the other side of the whole thing.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine being on the bottom and just having your, like, head stepped on, like, always? Like, after 5 people stepping on your head, it was like, dude, could you, like, not? Could you, like, just step anywhere else?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, actually, come to think of it, that reminds me of something that actually really bothered me about this episode, and that was the crowd noises. They were awful.
Honestly didn't even, I didn't even notice. I'm usually the one that hates crowd noises. What were they like, man?
They were awful. There's very little people there watching, but you would think it was a stadium for one, which I don't notice that in American Ninja Warrior. I've heard people complain about that on there before. I've never noticed that.
Me.
But it was really noticeable, and the worst is when they would step on their head, or, somebody would get hit somewhere. You would get a really big over the top, like the whole crowd just saw that person get their head stepped on, and all collectively, let out this thing. It was just awful. It was so forced. It was the most jarring crowd noises I've ever heard.
Now that you said that, I'm not going to be able to not, like, Every time I watch this show, that's all I'm going to hear.
I just ruined it for everyone.
That's going to be, yeah. Like, it's going to be so noticeable now. I didn't notice this episode, but maybe it's because I wasn't paying that much attention to the audio. Like, I honestly, I probably didn't even realize they were hosts until they showed them on the screen. I'm like, oh yeah, they're hosts. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to notice it from now on. But that is a good point. I can totally see, since it's from the same company, them just queuing in all this ridiculous like noises where you're like, nobody's around to do that. Like, I'm sure there's people around, but not to that extreme, right?
Yeah, there's a few dozen people on some bleachers off to the side. Like, there are people there, but it's not like this. And, speaking of audio, my only other real beef was... I don't know if it was intentional. It seemed very intentional. Or maybe it was a tribute. We'll call it a tribute to Akbar. But there was at least once, I think it was twice, we get the, "Are you kidding me?"
I don't know. That's a common phrase. I'm sure it was. But at the same time, I can't blame the guy. I don't know if he was necessarily doing it to mimic Akbar or not.
Are you kidding me?
I swear, it sounds exactly like that.
Are you kidding me?
You listen back. I'm telling you, he does it.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah. He didn't tell anybody to keep their L's though, so I guess that's okay.
No, if he said keep your L's, that's where I'd give that little side eye. I'd be like, like, what are you doing, bro?
I see you, Rose Wetzel.
Oh God, I can totally see them doing that now. Oh, that'd be the worst.
So yeah, overall impressions.
I think there's room for improvement. I know I was down, like very critical, like going through this, but I actually still thoroughly enjoyed it.
So do you want to give it a 1 to 10? What would you give it?
1 to 10? I don't know, maybe a 6. Like 6 is usually good, you know.
Really?
Like this is the problem. People give I used to do a lot of freelance journalism and reviewing and stuff, and I think people have this skewed mentality where if it's 7 to 10, it's good, but anything underneath that, well, actually nowadays it's like 9 or 10 is good and everything else is crap. But the way it is, 5 is average. 5 is good, like decent, and then after that, you know, it's got room for improvement. So I don't know, maybe a 6.5, but you know, if I wouldn't say, I don't know. At the most 7. I wouldn't give it like an 8 or anything, but 6.5 to a 7 for me. What about you?
Yeah, I think I would have said 6, but with your scale, I would say probably a 5. So your grading system, I'm going to give it a 5, right in the middle. I'll watch it again. I won't have any problem with watching it again. It's not like I'm going to be like, oh man, why did we commit to doing this? This is terrible. But yeah, it definitely. If it wasn't something that we committed to do, no, I may not have tuned in again. Like, I really didn't catch my interest that much. It didn't completely push me away, but yeah, we'll see. I hope it grows on me a little more.
Yeah, I hope next episode, the actual premiere, quote unquote, will be a lot better. And I have to imagine it will be, because this is the preview. But I don't know if this was actually a good idea. If this particular episode isn't as good as next week's, I think they made a huge mistake of airing this. Even if it was quote unquote the preview, a lot of people are going to view it as a premiere.
Yeah, we'll find out. All right, so that is it for this episode.
Yeah. I'm curious. I want to hear from everybody. Please hit us up and let us know how you felt about this show, because I think there's going to be a huge disparity of people that have done Spartan races or like some of these obstacles and people that haven't, because the show really didn't give anybody a feel for how difficult the things that they did were. And I think if you actually have done them, you're going to know just how difficult it is and get more of a grasp of like just understanding and feeling for them. Whereas people that are just offset watching it are probably gonna be like, whatever, we just saw American Ninja Warrior where they're doing some really crazy obstacles, and they might not get a feel for it as much. So I want to hear from everybody. Let me know how you felt about this show.
Yeah, so if you do want to reach out to us, as always, you can reach us at rich@ninjapodcast.com. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere as Ninja Podcast. And if you'd like to reach Bijan directly, you want to give us the address there?
It's both Instagram and Twitter at Bijan151. Bijan 151. Hit me up.
So that's it for our second episode of the week. Thank you for tuning in. And if you are tuning in for the first time, I hope you'll take the time to listen to one of our American Ninja Warrior episodes as well. And thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great week.
Peace, y'all.